Shalom, welcome to Scripture Nuggets with Restorers of Truth. Today's Scripture Nugget is based upon the Torah Portion Ra'ah. It is found in the book of Devarim or Deuteronomy chapter 11, verse 26. And the Torah portion continued to go through chapter 16, verse 17. And in this particular portion, Ra'ah, we're going to begin in chapter 11, verse 26, and we're going to read a few scriptures, and then we will go into the scripture nugget. In Devarim chapter 11, verse 26, it says, "Behold, I set before you this yom, a barakah and a kilala." Now, what we've done, as we've done in the past, is that we highlighted and emboldened certain words to make sure that we bring in more of an Hebrew term or Hebrew term to give a better understanding of what was said back in the day or back in that time period. So it says, "Behold, I set before you this yom, a barakah and a kelela." Now, a kelela is curse, a barakah is blessing. We don't say that word, but it's barakah. A barakah in verse 27, "If you obey the commandments of Yahuwah, your Elohim, which I command you this yom." And a kelala, "If ye will not obey the commandments of Yahuwah, your Elohim, but turn aside out of the way which I command you this yom, to go after other mighty ones, which you have not known. And it shall come to pass when Yahuwah your Elohim hath brought you in or unto the land where thou goest to possess it, that thou shalt put the barakah upon Mount Gerizim and the Keilah upon Mount Ebal." Now, if you remember, as they began to approach the land, the promised land, there was two mountains, Mount Gerizim. And when you think of Gerizim, think of the Samaritans. But in Mount Gerizim, he would put the barakah. In Mount Ebal, he would put the kelala, or the curse. And there's a reason for Yahuwah doing that. So that as you come through this way, as these two mountains are parallel to each other and face each other, in the area of Shechem, before you get into the promised land, or as you go into the promised land, you could be reminded of the barakah and the kelala, or the curse. That's why Yahuwah says, "I set before you this yom," so you can see it's tangible. Okay, verse 30. "Are they not on the other side of Jordan by the way where the sun goeth down in the land of the Canaanites, which dwell in Champaign over against Gilgal, beside the plains of Moriah? For you shall pass over Jordan to go in to possess the land which Yahuwah your Elohim giveth you, and you shall possess it and dwell therein. And you shall observe to do all the statutes and judgments which I set before you this yom." Now let's look at this. Now you see we have highlighted here in red, "Behold," that's Ra'ah. Ra'ah. There's a specific message that Yahuwah is saying here in verse 26. He wants you to pay attention to everything that is said thereafter. Ra'ah, it has the Hebrew number 87200, which means to see, it means to gauge or gaze, it means to take heed, and it also means to perceive. So Yahuwah is saying, I want you to perceive something. I want you to perceive. I want you to see. I want you to gaze at. I want you to take heed of the barakah and the kelala, or the curse. Now, it is important for us to see it, to behold it, to gaze at it, because there's a message here. Not just to know there's a barakah, not just to know that there's a kelala or a curse, But I want you to see, this is what Yahuwah is saying. I want you to see, he's talking to Yasharal, because when they came to Mount Gerizim, half the tribes was facing Gerizim. The other half was facing Ebal to look at the Kelala, or the curse. There's a reason for that, because as both is being displayed and all the tribes are there broken up, half on this side, half on the other, all began to hear the same thing. So no one can say they did not know. But Yahuwah wants you to take heed. He wants you to see what he's saying. He wants you to see what he is speaking. He wants you to see what he is doing. And the barakat of it and the kelala of it. Now, that's in that first portion of the Torah Portion Ra'ah in Devarim chapter 11. However, when you get to Devarim chapter 12, it says in verse 29, when Yahuwah your Elohim shall cut off the nations from before you, whether you goest to possess them, and you succeed them and dwell in their land. Now here's a term that is being used here. The term in verse 30 says, take heed. Now remember in chapter 11, verse 26, he says, Ra'ah, behold. Now he's saying, take heed to yourself, that you be not snared. And we have snared in bolding, because we need to talk about that for a moment. By following them, after that they be destroyed from before you. And you inquired not after their mighty ones. How did these nations serve their mighty ones? Even so will I do likewise. Thou shalt not do so unto Yahuwah your Elohim. For every abomination to Yahuwah, which he have done unto their mighty ones, which he hateth rather, have they done unto their mighty ones. For even their sons, talking about the other nations, and their daughters, they have burnt in the fire to their mighty ones. What things soever I command you, observe to do it. Thou shalt not add thereto, nor diminish from it. Now notice in verse 30 we have inquire not after their mighty ones highlighted. And in verse 32 we highlighted observe to do it. Thou shalt not add thereto, nor diminish from it. Now let's look at take heed, because we're going to take heed in order to behold, or in order to ra'ah. Take heed, we have the Hebrew word shamar, H8104. It means to hedge, it means to guard, it means to protect, it means to attend to, it means to be aware or beware, be circumspect. It means to take heed. Now look at this last definition here. It says a watchman. I'm paying close attention. I'm making sure that I put a hedge. And you know what? Yahuwah is putting a hedge. He is putting it on Mount Gerizim, the Barakat. He's putting the Kelala, the curse, upon Mount Ebal, so that when they pass by, they would know. He's putting a hedge. Now, it says, be not snared by following them. What does snare mean? It comes from the Hebrew number H5367 as nakash, to lay a trap. To lay a trap, or to catch you. It says following them. The Hebrew number H310, which is akar, which means to pursue after. Now this sounds familiar. He's talking about other nations. Now where have we heard following after other nations before? In Yirmiyahu chapter 10. It says, chapter 10, verse 2, and chapter 10, verse 3. Thus says Yahuwah, learn not the way of the heathen. Learn not the way of the heathen. Be not dismayed at the signs of Shamayim, for the heathen are dismayed at them. Now, what does it mean to learn not the way? Way in this text is H1870 as direct. It means a way, it means a journey, it means a manner. So we should not learn the manner of other nations, of other people. Now, there's a reason why. For the customs of the people are vain. What does it mean, customs of the people? H2708 as kuka, which means their enactment, their ordinances, how they do things. So in essence, Ra'ah in this Torah portion is teaching us to honor the Barakat and stay away from the curse. Stay away from the curse. Remember, as we read in Devarim, it says that don't even inquire how other nations or other people do things, how they do their mighty ones. So what is this scripture nugget is about? The scripture nugget is about beholding, Ra'ah, seeing and perceiving what Yahuwah is saying. It says, in order to take heed or shamar, guarding and protecting your circumspect walk with Yahuwah. I'm taking heed to that. I'm Ra'ah, I'm beholding, I'm seeing what Yahuwah is saying. And I'm guarding myself, and I'm walking circumspectly with Yahuwah. And the reason I do that is that it prevents me from being snared or ensnared or nakash or trapped or caught by other nations, by following a car and pursuing other nations. Other nations what? Their ways, their direct, their manner, their customs, their kuka. Because doing so would take me away from the commands of Yahuwah. Behold, I set before you a Barakat and a Kalela. Shalom, shalom. See you next time on Scripture Nuggets.